All right, today we're going to talk about something pretty heavy. It's the history of this huge territory right in the middle of Africa, a story that for a really long time most of the world just didn't know about. We're talking about the Congo Free State.
Yeah, just let that sink in for a second. A king owned a country and killed 10 million people. It's just a shocking statement, right? And it perfectly sets the stage for what we're about to get into. The biggest question, the one that hangs over everything, is how? How could this possibly have happened?
Well, to even begin to get our heads around the horror, we have to look at how this whole thing was structured. Because honestly, it was bizarre. There's really nothing else like it in modern history. Okay, and this right here, this is the absolute key to understanding everything. The Congo Free State. It wasn't a Belgian colony. Not at all. It was the personal, private property of just one guy, King Leopold II. Think about that. He didn't rule it on behalf of his country. He owned it, like a giant piece of real estate. The land, the resources, and in his mind, the people. It was all his. So this whole arrangement kicks off in 1885, and it goes on for 23 years. For more than 2 decades, you have a single individual with total unchecked power over a territory that was, get this, 76 times bigger than his own country of Belgium. The scale is just mind-boggling. So you're probably wondering, how on earth did he pull this off? How did he get the rest of the world to just let him have a giant chunk of Africa? Well, he did it with what might be one of the most successful and frankly most disgusting PR campaigns ever.
And this really shows you the two faces of the whole project. On one hand, you have the public promise. He told the world this was a noble cause. He was going to bring Christianity, civilization, and, ironically, end the slave trade in Central Africa. But the private goal, the real reason, it was pure greed. He knew the land was overflowing with resources like ivory and especially rubber, and he wanted to squeeze every last drop of wealth out of it for himself.
You know, when your only goal is maximum profit and you have no one to answer to, well, things get dark. And that's exactly what happened. This is where the story shifts from a clever hoax to just pure terror. They started calling it red rubber for a reason, because it was harvested with so much blood. So you've got the motive, greed, and you've got the setup, total control. What was the real human cost of this whole thing? 10 million. It's a number so big it's hard to even wrap your head around it. An estimated 10 million Congolese people lost their lives because of Leopold's rule. This wasn't an accident. It was a result of the system he created, all driven by this global craze for rubber. So how do you get to a number that high? It was a system. A deliberate system of terror. Whole villages were forced to harvest rubber. They were given quotas that were basically impossible to meet. And if you failed, Leopold's private army, the Force Publique, would come in. The punishments were horrific, but the one everyone knows about is the mutilation. They would sever people's hands, men, women, children, to prove they weren't wasting bullets. It was pure, calculated terror, all designed to get as much rubber as possible. Eventually, the stories of these atrocities started to leak out, and the international outrage grew so loud that Leopold couldn't ignore it. In 1908, he was finally forced to give up his private kingdom. But you know what? The story doesn't stop there. In fact, it connects directly to a debate that's happening right now. Yeah, this timeline really lays it all out. It starts in 1885, with Leopold getting his personal domain. Then, in 1908, international pressure makes him hand it over to the Belgian government. But here's the crazy part. Leopold himself, he never faced any consequences. In fact, for years, he was seen as a national hero in Belgium. And that's why, to this day, there's this huge, ongoing argument about all the public statues of him that are still standing. And this quote just nails the whole controversy. For overseeing one of the worst human rights disasters in history, he wasn't shamed, he wasn't condemned, no. Belgium put him on a pedestal. They built him up, and in doing so, they created this version of history where those 10 million people just disappeared from the story.
Which brings us to a really big question, something to think about. What is a public monument for? I mean, who do we as a society decide to literally put on a pedestal in our town squares? And what does that choice say about us, about the history we choose to celebrate and the history we choose to forget? It's about more than just the past, right? It's about how we decide to remember it today.